And that story there, that's where we're going to start our Taking Stock for tonight. We're joined by Richard Miles, Pro-Vice-Chancellor at the University of Sydney, and Warren Mundine, host of Mundine Means Business right here, well, on Sky, I should say. This was an interesting one. This Chinese company is trying to give the world free internet, but there's no such thing as a free lunch, as we know. Warren, I might start with you. Are you slightly concerned at all about that news?
Well, you know, the old saying, be careful of Chinese bearing free gifts. and this is what we've got to worry about. Look, it's, as I say, as you just said, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Look, great, I'm a cheap bugger. I like freebies all the time. But I'm a bit worried about getting, free Wi-Fi. When you look at what's happening in China and how they're monitoring things and really, putting a repressive regime in place.
Yeah, Richard?
I mean, one thing I would say is we've got to get this into perspective. I mean, think about what American, Australian and other Western companies do with our data as well, okay?
I was going to say,
everybody
we shouldn't trust
is
any
up
of
to
them.
this. I mean, the fact is our data is worth a fortune.
Yeah.
And, and of course these things which are free, it's usually about extracting as much data about us as possible.
Yeah, and as we said, they're all in a race to do it, and there's no probably secret as to why, because exactly what you're talking about. The data will be there and they want it. Yeah,
the only difference is that, look, I agree 100% with it, because the information they get and they send it back, but I do have confidence in some of the stuff that in their incompetence about what they send back to you. I get all this weird stuff coming to me, and I thought I'd look at it and I sort of go, gee, they know something personally about me that I don't know.
That I don't know?
Yeah.
I know what you mean. It's not quite right yet.
Because it's children's hour, but I tell you what, there's some weird stuff comes through. So I'm not too worried about Google and all of
they don't know you as well as they may think they think. Yeah.
Every time I put my home address in, they send me off to some place in Alabama or something like that. But the issue here is that with China, everything's run by the country, and you've got to concern yourself with that. But Richard is right. They're just sucking up all our information, and how they're using it and how they're censoring us is pretty dangerous.
But also, I mean, we also got it get it into the context that China is a huge business partner for us. And, I think we've got to be a little bit careful around the rhetoric, sort of anti-Chinese rhetoric. You hear so much of this at the moment. And in fact, if you look at who we're doing business with and who we trust ourselves to do business with, it's China. So, in the end, I just think that, there's a sort of tinge of something
xenophobia
else.
in there.
Something slightly unpleasant in there too.
I think it's interesting, and I'm curious to get your perspective on this as an educator, because one of the best things about the internet, of course, is that it's total free information exchange. But in China, there's censorship, and there's a whole lot of you will see what we want you to see. So that version of the internet, if that's extended to, say, parts of Africa that have never had the internet before, do you worry at all about the sorts of information or the lack of total freedom of information?
Do you know, it's a curious thing, isn't it? Because freedom of information is a bit of a noose around our necks as well. I mean, you think about some of the things on the internet. Okay, I mean, where does freedom actually lead us? I don't want to sound like some sort of autocrat, but there's it's a double-sided coin now.
You look at some of the stuff that goes on the internet. I've been told by friends it can be very creepy and some weird stuff going on there. So look, there's always. I'm a great supporter of free speech, as we all are, but there are limits to that.
Let's talk about the National Register scheme that was announced today that basically allows problem gamblers to ban themselves from all betting sites and apps. The various announcements today talked about how much of a problem online sports gambling and other forms of gambling online have become, and how fast it's growing. I don't feel it's gone far enough, because I don't think you can personally allow addicts to go through a process and actually say that I am an addict and therefore I'm going to ban myself. I think that is so unlikely a scenario. If you've known anyone with addiction problems, I just think who is going to self-regulate in that situation? Self-regulation.
I mean, it actually made me laugh out loud when I saw that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was more enraged, but yeah, good. I'm glad you were laughing.
And if you go into, and I know Australia, I often hear Australians like to have a bet, but if I see, often if you go into a pub or go into a hotel, you see the people who are putting hundreds of dollars into those machines, in which you've got stand virtually no chance of winning. It's not wealthy people. It's guys and women basically who need that weekly wage. And that's a worry. That's a real worry.
And everyone knows that they're designed that what every dollar you get in, you only get about 90 cents back or something like that. So you know it's computerised to do that.
But it's even worse online on apps now because you're so desensitised to the money that you're spending. It's like all of us with our credit cards, tap, 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 tap. You know, on betting it's tap, tap, tap away. People are even more desensitised than ever.
Did Google tell you about my credit card? But you're right. Look,
the online stuff is just scary.
Thing. You've got to go in and actually ban it, which I like the idea that they could go in there and ban themselves. But there are other people a lot of other people that have serious problems, and as Richard said, I see them sitting there in some of the clubs, and this is the old one-armed bandit. But when you start going on apps and everything else, you just see people sucking up their.
Well, that's it, isn't it, Warren? Because it is the app. It's this immediacy where you're watching the footy or the cricket or whatever, and then there's an ad that comes on for having a punt on it, and you've got the phone, sitting on your knee, which has the app on it, and you can just go bang, bang, bang like that. So this self-regulation, I wonder if that's the most important one versus, if they were to say, right, you can put yourself.
You can go further than that. Look, self-regulation is a good start, but the big problem with gambling is you can gamble on so many different things now. Yeah. I remember, you just sort of bet on a thing like, this is going to win the horse race, or this is going to win the footy game. Now you can go minute by minute gambling on what's happening.
Or what tie people wear.
I remember when I first walked into a pub here, often they look like bookmakers just with beer in them, right? And basically, they're sort of pony trotting, probably the most boring.
Wait, this is the trots with the
cars. It's the most boring thing you've ever seen. They're all betting on it.
And they're all having a chat when they're in the race. You want to win this one? No, you go.
But the big problem here is, we don't have advertising and promotion of poker machines or casinos, really. But for some reason, we're allowed to advertise and freely promote with some serious money being spent in the economy on online betting. Sportsbet.com.au, tabcorp.com.au.
It's hilarious.
Why are we allowing this?
If you look at the self-representation, it was hilarious. I was in an airport recently. I can't remember where it was. And there was a whole ad, basically, and it shows all these sort of guys surrounded by women on private jets, these confident, sort of good-looking guys, putting on a bet and then walking off, as if they're sort of like
that's
little
the
gods. But actually, that's not what most profitable gamblers look like. They're sitting shiftily in a betting shop.
And this is the long stretch. They look even worse than me, some of them. But it is a serious problem. And you look at the sponsorships. Just about every sporting club in Australia now carries all those ads all the time. In fact, I sit there for a footy game starts. They'll actually have a 60-second thing talking about the game and who you're going to bet on and all these different bets that you can make. That is just.
Which 10-year-old kids are watching alongside. That's what I think that should be allowed.
It used to be cigarettes. It's just unbelievable, isn't it?
We've gone from bad to worse.
I just think that the whole thing was the onus on the problem gambler to identify themselves as a problem gambler and then do something about it.
Hopeless.
Whereas, where was the onus on the companies themselves to actually, have some kind of enforceable requirements to say you have to check that guy's okay when his limit says that, or you have to, look at the deposit levels that are in, in people's accounts,
etc. It's easy to check. You ask that Chinese Wi-Fi company.
They already know.
you can easily check that. And there has to be some sort of, there is an onus on these companies that to say, okay,
but it should be enforceable.
There's a group of people out there who are actually spending more than they're actually earning. So we need to block that.
Yeah, exactly.
And
where's the onus on them?
At home waiting for that money,
and
it's just, it's horrendous.
It's interesting. We also have to talk about another story, which is this idea that we need to ratchet up the criminal element of using your phone while you drive, that it is in some ways the same as being under the influence of alcohol, and all of these sorts of kind of correlations that are being made there. What do you think about that, Richard?
Look, I think it's reached crazy proportions. So I see people driving along, looking at their phones all the time, and you can actually tell from their driving. It's a green light. They're still stuck there. And and think about how many accidents there are.
But they brought in 5 demerit points if you get caught, or in double demerits it's 10 now. Don't you think that was a big deal?
Yeah, you've got to do that. But also, I think there should be some laws against pedestrians walking around with their phones like this. So
Interesting.
They have talked about that as
Interesting
well.
you mention it, Richard.
We had a story this week about that. That's been considered.
I was in the city
I agree with
once
that.
and I read an article about the pedestrians who have been hit by cars in Sydney CBD has gone up. Really gone up by this number.
Yeah.
And there has been some raids by police, and that's what they do is they just turn up their motorbikes, stand on each of the corners, and you just cannot believe how stupid something like here's the coppers standing on the corner.
Haven't
they're
even
still
noticed.
walking across the road.
With their noise-cancelling
And
headphones.
I've seen some of the coppers look at him and say, are you a friggin' idiot? I'm here and I'm just got you.
Yeah, we saw actually there was some news a little while ago that there were police who were pretending to be window washers in the middle of the street and walking around and just checking you out just to see if you've got it, and then they radio ahead, somebody pings you with these huge 5 demerit points or whatever it is. So the police are certainly taking it seriously. I think the question then becomes, well, how does it fit in terms of, okay, under the influence of alcohol, under the influence of drugs, fatigue, and then distraction? It's a point that you made really well today about, well, there's being under the influence and having your mind altered, and then there's being distracted while you're at a red light. So
different things.
Different
One's a
things.
criminal offence. One, I think, is you've got to crack down on. But I don't think you can charge someone with a criminal offence for being distracted.
Right. There's only
Can
you can charge. You can't charge for being
There's different levels too. There's low level, medium level, high
If you're
level.
driving on the motorway and you're going at 100 and whatever,
That's high level offence.
and then and you're looking at a phone, and there are lots of there's been a lot of cases in Britain of that going on, and people being sent to prison for long periods of time.
Well,
look, we're probably going to have to get to that stage.
Yeah.
Because you are seeing people who have been seriously injured, and you are seeing people who are seriously doing dangerous things and that. And you see that in the city, and it's not only the pedestrians we need to be looking at, but you also need to be looking at the drivers. And look, I wouldn't go as say it's as bad as drinking alcohol and being sloshed and getting on the road, but it is seriously bad. Sitting here watching, someone said a story today, they had a woman who was watching a movie while she was driving.
Oh, yeah.
Jeez.
That's just stupid. You can't legislate against stupidity. But
well,
you
yeah,
do
that's
He must
something.
have a TV screen in his dashboard of his BMW. I mean, what a ridiculous...
I had a BMW had that too, but I never turned the TV on.
Yeah.
You weren't watching Home and Away
He's
on.
wiser these days.
exactly.
You've got your show on Sunday, Warren.
You've got a
Chicken.
great
What
show
are you
on
doing?
Sunday. We've got Trade Up, which is about the mining industry and how careers have to change over a period of time. So it's looking at people who are moving into different careers and how the mining industry is actually helping them to do that and training them. The other things, I to talk about apps. IT, we've got Aboriginals in IT and looking at incredible stuff that's going there and seeing how near extinct and extinct Aboriginal languages are now coming back on a day-to-day conversation. Plus, we're trying to sex up mathematics and seeing how mathematics is such an important thing to be learning these days into the future.
Fantastic. What are you doing Sunday? You're off duty, but...
I'm off duty. I can't even remember. Probably looking after all of my children.
Probably. Don't sound so disappointed. Thank you very much.
Great.
Richard.
I think they're watching. Kids
Sound like that.
Richard and Warren, thank you very much for joining us, Taking Stock this Friday night.